All right. Welcome, everybody. My name is Alan Gorman. I'm the chair of the Department of Management and Marketing, and I also teach a class on training and development. We have been doing a project in my class with Mr. Keith Glover, who works in learning and development at ETSU. And so I wanted to take an opportunity to ask Keith about his job, his role, what he does at ETSU, and kind of what's a day in the life of a training and development specialist. So without further ado, Keith, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and then I've got some questions that I'm going to ask you, and we can just move along here steadily.
Cool. Well, I think you did a pretty good job there. I am Keith Glover, and I've been at ETSU since September of 2017 as the Employee Learning and Development Manager in the Office of HR, Human Resources. And so I don't know. I think we'll get into more about who I am a little bit in these questions, but we'll leave it at that. But that's what I do. My role here at ETSU is to make everybody else's role a little easier.
Nice. Good. Well, Keith, tell us about yourself and how you got interested in training and development.
Well, for me, I am a people developer. I've been that in every role that I've ever had. It's just kind of where my mind goes. It's every time I meet somebody or run into somebody, I want to see how I can help them be better at what they're doing. I've had various roles and jobs across my whopping 51 years, but I've done a little bit of everything, from youth ministry to being a trainer at Cendant, the world's largest franchisor. We had all the major brands of hotels like Days Inn, Travelodge, Howard Johnson, Nights Inn, all those different entities there. We also had Century 21, Caldwell Banker, Real Estate, RBI. There's a whole bunch. It was literally thousands of franchisors, and I was a corporate trainer there for a while in one of the call centers. And that's when I realized that I could actually, I guess that's when it started sparking with me that I could actually be in training in an organization and be able to make an impact. And so that's the thing for me, is making a difference. If what I'm doing is not making a difference, I don't want to be doing it. And I don't want to waste my time spinning wheels. I want to make sure that I'm being effective and efficient and making an impact and making a difference. So that's how I became interested. And throughout the years, I've done several other things, but wound up, I was in higher education for about 9.5 years at Northeast State Community College. And I was there as a director of leadership programs and student life. And I did mostly the leadership programs with the students, which really was a lot of development, student development, which is not a lot different than employee development. It's just a different target group of individuals. That's pretty much in a nutshell how I became interested in training and development. And honestly, since I've had this job, I feel like I've not had a job. You hear that thing all the time. If you find something you love to do and you'll never work another day in your life. And that's kind of the way I feel, even though, yes, I work and there's days when it doesn't feel as ideal as some others, like even now in the situation we're in, all working, remotely, and students going online for the rest of the semester through a kink in a lot of the plans that even you and I had. And I know this class had. So, there's days where you have to adapt and be flexible, but I think this is that's the reason I got interested in this, and I love where I'm at ETSU.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about your career in training and development so far.
Well, honestly, it's amazing to me how I didn't realize how much I already knew coming into this role. I just assumed I didn't know anything. And sometimes that's a great assumption. If you just don't assume you know anything, at least if you do know it, you don't appear like arrogant individual. And so I came in not realizing that I probably did know a lot about the process of development of people and providing training for folks. But because I didn't go about it in the traditional way of, you know, I guess the pathway that a lot of people take. But I'm finding more and more talking with colleagues across the nation, and that's in my role. We we all got there through some kind of crooked pathway or whatever, and everything kind of works out together, and you wind up in the end in what you're supposed to be doing. And so for me, I think as I was in that role at Northeast State for 9.5 years, I was becoming familiar and educated on being in higher education and just how things work in education. It's a little different than business. Frankly, it's not as quick. Everything moves slower. Um, Sometimes, maddeningly slower. Um, and if you're used to corporate, and I had my own consulting firm a coaching and consulting firm for about a year in between Northeast State and ETSU. And that's when it was just rolling. It was going fast and speedy. And then all of a sudden I came back to higher education, and it's a little bit slower, but it's been a good mix. And that's some of the things that I learned along the way in consulting and in Northeast State. It helped prepare me for the role that I've got now. And I'm still learning and growing now. I do a lot of online learning and through LinkedIn Learning, actually. And by the way, there's some good news coming, I think, for all of our students, faculty, and staff about LinkedIn Learning soon. I'm not sure if you all have word of that yet, but eventually we're all going to get a free account of that. So I know that was getting ready to be rolled out, and then all of a sudden some little virus hit in China and has put everything on pause in our world. But that's kind of, my career. Learning at Northeast State, I was doing a lot of development for the students, and there came along this thing in the SACS guidelines for the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, and that's our accrediting body here at ETSU as well as Northeast State. And they started making this thing where staff units or employee units had to have one retreat per year or something like that. It was part of their quality enhancement plan and for the university. And so I started getting calls because nobody had any money in their budget. And I was the only one on campus that really did that with students, and they heard about it from their students. And so they called me, and I wound up doing training for financial aid staff, frontline staff in financial aid on customer service, did some stuff on with our executive team at the university or the college. And it was pretty neat, just the responses I got from that. And so then I started realizing, hey, I can make an impact at a larger level here. And I started seeing the similarities between what I was doing in student development. And it was my favorite part of being working in student development was that part of the training and preparing their retreats and speaking and interacting, facilitating growth and learning. And so that's kind of what it is. It's creating an environment where others can learn and thrive and flourish. And so that's kind of what drove me to that. So I think you're muted. I can't hear you. Sorry.
Technical difficulties.
There you go. It's so operator error.
Yeah. That leads us to the next question, which is, what do you love most about training and development?
Well, yeah, it's like I said, the impact that you can make and that you can have. There's something about it for me. And, some people get real excited if they win, in whatever they're doing. And for me, the biggest win is that somebody I'm working with to accomplish a goal or, help set them up to learn something, if they win. And so nothing excites me more than when I see others flourish and thrive, and know that you've had a little just a little hand, not that you're their talent or you're totally responsible for all their success, but that you've had a little, I guess, a little something to do with their success. To me, if I can't, kind of be joyous and celebrate when somebody else is winning, that I've helped kind of, point in a direction or lead down a path or give a little piece of advice, or provide some environment in which they learn something, even if it's not me providing the learning directly. That's the excitement for me, is to see others be super successful and know that you had some small little part in that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So then what's your least favorite thing about training and development?
It's the least favorite thing about anything I do, and that's the detail work. It's just my personality. I'm not by nature administrative. It's not that I can't do it. I'm actually quite, adept at a lot of things administratively, and I do them. But it's almost like part of the reason that I think I got frustrated or kind of burnt in my position at Northeast State. And Northeast State's a great institution. There's nothing wrong with that. There's wonderful people there. I love them. They're still good friends. So this day, when you work, almost 10 years with people, you get to know them and you really form relationships and still have those. But one reason I think it was, I started off this job and it was this much of what I wanted to do and this much of what I didn't like to do. It was a little bit of administrative. Mostly it was interaction with people. And I loved that. And over about 9.5 years, it became like this. And it was about this much of what I loved to do. And then I had to do this much administrative stuff. I was on 37 committees, I think, when I left there. So that tells you there's any place that has 37 committees should be shut down in my book. But I'm just not, I don't get excited about administrative stuff, although I realize that there are importances to it and you can't just ignore it. I think it gets back to one of the trainings that I do with our staff is, I talk about what my buddy Mark Miller from Chick-fil-A talks about all the time. And he says we're bent, or everybody in the world is kind of bent or created to kind of lean toward one or the other, results or relationship. And it doesn't mean that you don't need both, because you do. Without results, you can't have relationships because nobody has a job, because we had to shut down because we didn't make enough money to stay afloat. But if you only focus on results and you ignore relationships, eventually you're not going to have any relationships with which to get your results. And so, whatever your personality or your bent is on that, I think you have to acknowledge the importance of the opposite viewpoint. I think results are very important, and you need that administrative detail person and issues taken care of to get that, even if you're not the person. But at the same time, I know my natural leanings and my just natural giftedness is in relationships. And so I think understanding who you are and understanding, how others function and who they are, the people that work closely with you, will carry you a long way in whatever you decide to do, however you decide to use this degree. Understanding who you are and who the people around you are on your team, and pulling out the best in everybody, because everybody brings something to the table. And if you can pull out the best in everybody and put it all together, you got a great organization, a great team, a great unit, whatever. But if you can't do that and you're constantly just bickering over the differences, or you put people in their weak areas, I think that's what happened in a sense at Northeast State. I got put in my weak area because I was good at it. Just because you're good at something doesn't mean it's your strong area. It's whatever gives you strength, gives you energy. If you do the strength finders, I don't know if you've used that before, but that's a great little assessment that tells you about what gives you energy. And that's a great way to go.
Excellent. Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
So for our listeners, or our viewers, I should say, Keith and I were engaged in a project with my class where we were going to do a needs analysis for training at ETSU. So you probably had a chance to think about my next question, but what are your thoughts on the current state of training and development at ETSU?
Wow. Um, Honestly, I'm probably one of the few people that is just a little bit excited that everybody has to use Zoom this week and for the next few weeks and for the rest of the semester in some people's case, because it's forcing people to use technology that we've had at our fingertips for several years and nobody's ever really taken advantage of, or few people, I should say, have taken advantage of. Um, the, to me, education is a good place that people can go and get comfortable. It's not that they're not smart people, they're not good people, but sometimes it can get too easy. And I find if you don't put yourself in a situation where you're challenged a little bit, it's harder to grow. And so I think this crisis that we're in the middle of with this COVID-19 virus that's out has put people in a spot in where they're thrown off their normal game. The security blanket has been jerked off and somebody threw a cold bucket of water on them, and now they're having to react to that. And so for me, there's a little bit of excitement in seeing that play out. And just the Zoom meetings and I've been involved in just a week of working from home, it's been pretty amazing to see the openness, the willingness to learn, the logins to our online learning platform called Precipio has nearly doubled in just a week. So it's pretty amazing to see some of that. So and I'm having requests for certain things. We're going to start hopefully next week a learning kind of learning and development check-in call for all employees of ETSU. And just to have people jump in on Zoom and say, hey, how are you doing? Is there something we can provide that could help you do your job better from home? And maybe we can't, but throw it out there. If we can get it, we'll try our best to get it to you. And it's going to help us in some ways do that. But I think the current state, before all this happened, I think the current state of ETSU is just I want to say, lackadaisically comfortable as far as the learning and development aspect of the environment. I think when people get comfortable, and it's by nature going to happen, I think, at any learning institution like an education institution, because people so focus on their one subject. I'm an accounting professor. Well, I shouldn't pick on anybody in business. Let me pick something else. I'm a biology professor. I don't want anybody to come back on me there in your department. But I'm a biology professor, and so I focus on biology, and that's all I care about. And rightfully so. That's why I was hired. My expertise is in that area. My degree's in that area. I'm focused on that area. And sometimes we can get blinders on and come in and not see how the daily thing I'm doing with my biology students is playing out in the overall picture of the organization and how that's making ETSU great. And so sometimes you can get those blinders on and feel like I know everything I need to know because I know everything about my one subject. And the problem with that is, are you good at communicating that subject? Are you good at promoting that subject to students, to people who may be interested in it and want to know about it, but they just don't know. And so, there's all different ways of looking at it. But I think, before this all came out, I think we're comfortable and everybody's comfortable in their own lane and they didn't have to get in anybody else's lane and it was fine in their mind. But I think that can create a stagnant environment and it just creates encourages like a flat line of growth. And I think we were there, but we were starting to penetrate that a little bit and just kind of chip away at it from the edges. I feel like I've got a huge job ahead of me, and it's good because it'll probably take me till retirement to reach some of the goals that I've set for myself. So, but that's okay. I think I'm excited about the future of ETSU, but when I look at where it's currently at, do I think it needs to go, light years ahead of where it's at. Yes, no question. And it's really sad, even, more so in my opinion, for your business students. My degree's in business. So for your business students, you're training them, about what real life is supposed to be like in learning and development, cutting edge stuff. And then when you look at your own institution of where we're at, sometimes it's not, and there's always going to be a little lag between education, just the layers of bureaucracy and state and federal government that's involved. It's just always going to be a little bit that way, and you kind of expect that, but you don't expect it to be way behind the curve. And some points, I think we are way behind the curve as far as pouring into our employees, because I think if we realized how much pouring into our employees mattered, and I don't think anybody at our institution would say it doesn't matter or really believe that, but I think just unintentionally, the hottest fire gets the attention. Yeah. And so it's kind of a natural thing that it falls into that. And I think that's kind of where we've been for a while, is just putting out fires and reacting, and instead of planning and responding and being strategic about everything we do. Please don't tell Dr. Heiss I said anything about strategy, because I will get shot.
No, don't worry, I won't share anything with Dr. Heiss. Don't worry.
Oh, this is being recorded. I shouldn't have said anything. He'll never watch it now. But that's just where we're at. I think we've got a long way to go, but I think we're making some progress in the last 2 years. I see some things that, honestly, it doesn't seem like we're doing stuff now that I didn't think was possible when I first came. So I see some growth and some changes that we've made. As a matter of fact, getting LinkedIn Learning is a huge step on our online learning stuff. And then this happening is forcing people to learn the technology. So now they can't use the excuse, I don't know how to do that. Right. So yeah, you do know how to do it. It's okay if you're choosing not to, but that's your choice. Right. So we're trying to prevent, or provide opportunity for growth. We can't, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make them drink. You can lead, you can create an environment, you can lead everybody to the training, but you can't, force people to learn. And that's true with students as well. Nobody's going to force you to learn.
Right. And it's pretty fascinating as a business scholar to see what's going on right now, because, we teach flexibility and agile and responsiveness. And now more than any time in the past, as an educator, we're having to do that on the fly. Yeah. I saw a quote from a higher ed administrator who was talking about, if I had said we were going to move all our classes online, it would have taken us 10 years to do it. But instead, we did it in 1 week. And, that's, when you have these kinds of crises, it can force you into doing things that you didn't think you could do. So the amount of learning that's going on right now is, exponential. So it's pretty interesting to see.
Yeah. And let me just, honestly, one thing that I'm blown away by is our ITS department at ETSU, in the ability to do what they've done in such a short amount of time is nothing less than astounding. Yeah. I never thought it could have been done, to be honest. And I'm not talking just from the students' perspective, but from all of our purchasing, our timesheets. You don't understand all that goes into running, an organization that has somewhere in the neighborhood of 5,000 to 8,000, part-time and full-time employees. I think 2,600 are regular budgeted full-time employees. And so it's been pretty amazing to watch them do what they've done in just 2 or 3 weeks. So Dr. King and her entire staff deserve a round of applause for what they've been able to do. And it's honestly, I've not heard a whole lot of, there's little things here and there, but I've not heard of a whole lot of major issues go on so far.
Yeah, I agree. It's been amazing to see. Yeah. But so speaking of growth and opportunities, what's your, I'm going to force you to prioritize, but what's your top 3 priorities for improving training and development at ETSU?
Yeah, well, I think the one of them ties into all that is making use of all the technology that we have at our fingertips. We can accomplish so much more in so many different ways, and making training, on demand. We have our Precipio app on your cell phone that you can use, and That's been one thing. I know LinkedIn Learning will be the same way. You can access it from your phone. That's one priority. And I don't know if I would put that as my top priority. I think that would maybe be, I'll go in reverse and that'll be number 3. But because I think before last week, it may have been number 2. But I don't think I have to make that a priority now because it's been made a priority for me and for everybody else. But I think the other thing for me is supervision training and management training. We have a lot of experts and subject matters all across our campus, as does any university or college campus. And I think the greatest thing is that if we can take somebody who's very well versed in a certain subject, but yet they've been thrown into a management position over people who are experts at that subject, or various avenues of that subject. It's been amazing to see how little training we've actually given those people before throwing them into a pretty massive responsibility role. And I've been amazed at how people have responded the best they can and have made it work. But we really don't have a systematic organizational development program. And so for me, that would be probably my top priority. And I think that organizational development program, it has to start with, making sure our supervisors and managers are trained. And it's not that they're inept at what they're doing. It's just, for the most part, they're not, but they've never been, you have somebody great at making widgets, but then they're thrown into being over a group of people who make widgets. And that's a whole different skill set than making the widget. It's dealing with people. And one of the things that I'm really focusing on, I'll hold up this book, is Crucial Conversations. It says the tools for talking when the stakes are high. If you're not familiar with this book, I highly recommend it in whatever realm you go into. It's just pretty amazing. We're taking a group of supervisors through that book right now and doing a book club with that. And I hope to do that more and more. But just to pour into, some supervisors have taken over a space where, you've had employees under you that have had, performance reviews that have been all 5s, all excellence, for years, for 20 years. And which is virtually impossible to be realistic and to give all excellence. Then you've got a new supervisor coming in who's been trained maybe, or who at least understands the evaluation process, and is coming in and giving an evaluation of 3 on that person who's always had 5s. Well, they see that as a demotion or a downgrade or whatever. And having the crucial conversation with that person and sit down and say, this is not a reflection on that your performance has really drastically changed. And even making a note in the performance about that is that I'm a new supervisor, and I'm sure I evaluate differently maybe than the old supervisor, because the old supervisor may have been under this culture that was, everybody gets 5s. If you get less than a 5, you're doing a bad job. And that's not the case. A 3 is you're meeting all the expectations. Right. That means you're doing your job. Everything's good. But a 4 is you do a little bit better than meeting expectations. And then a 5 is you couldn't do any better. And I just think we've had a lack of understanding. We really don't have a true performance evaluation system that's good at our university. I think we're working on that, but it's a hard thing to change because you're talking about changing culture. And when people don't change easily, unless there's a crisis, obviously. But we're looking at doing something like that. So I would say that's my top priority, is supervision management, and also making sure, and that's all part of it, but making sure there's some overall organizational development, planned, and that the senior leadership is involved in that. I mean, having our executive staff involved in, clearly defining that vision which I think they do pretty decent at that. But putting something in place, a pathway in place to know here's where we are, kind of like drawing a map and saying, here's where you are and here's where we want to go. And everybody can see that clearly. I think that would help tremendously for people to know what are the steps I have to take to be where I need, want to be. Or do I want to stay at just meeting expectations? If you're meeting expectations and that's what I'm paying you for, okay, we can do that. But if you really want to go above and beyond, and then having an avenue by which people can go there, that's the people and that way you pull out your high potential leaders for the future, for succession planning, which is the whole end product of that sustainability model of an organization, the life cycle of the organization. What happens when Dr. Nolan gets 70 or when he decides to go on to maybe greater things in his career, what do we do then? At a university, at the university. I mean, what's our plan for that? Is anybody even discussing that now? And so, those are things I'd love for us to start thinking about and start moving toward. It's again, somebody asked me a few weeks ago before all this crisis broke out, what do you think? How's it going in HR? And I said, well, I feel like it's a big ship and we're in the back of the boat, a hold of the rudder, just pulling back like this. And hopefully I can feel the boat turning, but I'm not sure, it's not going real fast. And I hope we don't get taken out by, a tidal wave as we swing around to the direction we need to go. But that's a huge long answer for those 3 top priorities, but there you go.
No, that's great. And as you were talking, I was thinking this is another instance of, taking advantage of a crisis. Now we understand how important training and development is, and maybe this could put a lot of the emphasis back on training and development now.
Yeah. I've honestly, since I've been home this week, I've honestly, and if you hear little dings, I don't know if that's recording on your recording, but I hear little dings in my ear on my computer. My emails are coming in. So, but if honestly, I've been busier. There's more to do since I've been working from home than there was when I was in the office. I've had more requests, more emails, more, where do I go to find this? What do I do to find this? I've been sending people Teams, Microsoft Teams. People are starting to use that now. I'm like, this is a great product. We've been trying, we were working with one unit that was wanting to use this before. And now I'm getting, right and left, I'm sending people links to that. And hopefully, I start to say, I'll make them pull that up for you and put the link in your chat box there. I don't know if I can do that or not, but that way it would be on there for the recording and everyone could see that. If I can find, you can go ahead and we can continue talking, but if I can find that, I'll do that. Okay.
Well, you mentioned Crucial Conversations, which is a great book, a great resource. What are some other books or articles or resources would you recommend for people who are interested in getting into training and development?
Yeah. If people are interested in training and development, one of the best organizations, for research and everything else around is the Association for Talent Development, ATD. It used to be the Association for, I forgot, ASTD. I can't even remember what it stood for. Association for something, I don't know. I can't even remember what the word was, but ATD.org is their website, I believe. And the school, fortunately, and most organizations will pay for their training and development person to have a subscription to that, a yearly membership to that. And there's also certifications and classes and training that you can get through there if you're really interested in a career in that. And I'm considering getting some of those, one of those certifications in the future. Honestly, combined with your education you're getting now in this class and maybe beyond, it can really add to your resume and open up more doors for you. I always tell people, and some educators don't like me saying this, I don't think you would mind this, but taking classes at a university is not going to make you necessarily any smarter than you already are.
Right.
It's just going to give you opportunity to expand your network and your ability to grasp situations, to find the answers you're looking for, to know what questions to ask, really. And so education's important, but just because you jump through the hoop, there was a time in life where you could jump through the hoop, get the piece of paper, and your life was pretty much gravy from there on out. You never had to worry about a job. It's not that way anymore. You've got to set yourself apart. There's MBAs, everywhere, and not to negate that those people have gone through that. They've done the work. They've got the degree. But if you're not setting yourself apart and you're not growing in, especially in the area of training and development, if you're not doing something with your own learning. I mean, the first question they asked me when I got this job on the interview was, what are you doing right now to grow yourself in the area you want to grow in? Yeah. And so that's a great question to think of in your mind before you go into any kind of interview. But ATD has got some good things. There's also the Training Industry Network. It's Training Industry Magazine is a great resource. Those are probably the two top ones I use for resources, articles, different things like that. There's also a book that I actually was on the launch team of, and I'll hold this up here a little bit. This is called Creating Constructive Cultures, Leading People and Organizations to Effectively Solve Problems and Achieve Goals. And this is from a company called Human Synergistics International, which is a great organization from what I understand. And I didn't really know about them until I got this book. And I am on LinkedIn, and I encourage you, if you want to, you're welcome to connect with me on there. And one of the ladies that's the co-author of this book is a connection, and we've conversed back and forth in them putting this book out. It is definitely a textbook. It's not, don't get this for your, exciting reading. It's a lot of research, but it's really, really good stuff. And the basic gist of it, from what I gather, and I'm not finished with the book yet, but from what I gather, it has been how leaders impact culture and how cultures impact leaders. And there's a mutually, like, kind of this symbiotic relationship back and forth with that. And if anybody doesn't believe that, anybody who's been affiliated with ETSU for a long period of time, or in this area, you've known about the school, the difference in culture now compared to 15, 20 years ago, and not that one's good, one's bad, just the difference, seeing the changes that have taken place. And every organization, every school's changed in 20 years, just because everything changes. But it's been amazing to see the culture shift, and how Dr. Nolan, really, his personality and just how he operates has impacted ETSU. And the things that we've been able to do under his leadership have been pretty amazing. And I'm not just, tooting his horn, because I don't, I'm not trying to put him up on some kind of pedestal. He has faults too, and he's not perfect, but he really has done a good job laying out a vision and gathering a team of people around him to work toward that vision. And it's, like I said, it's not always perfect, but it's if you wait on perfection, you probably won't accomplish much, because I've yet to find it. Yeah. But we've hit close a couple times on a few things, and I think just going forward from this crisis and seeing how Ballot Health and ETSU Health are working together for our community right now makes me, every time I turn on the news or see something on the news about ETSU these days, I think, wow, I'm very proud to be working there right now. I'm very honored to be around some of the folks that, especially in our medical school and our ETSU Health, and Dr. Bishop and her entire team. Just, it's been pretty amazing to see that and the effects it's having on the community. So that's one book that I would recommend, Creating Constructive Cultures. It's not super expensive, and it's on Amazon now, I think. But yeah, I don't know. There's tons of books out there, and most books on leadership are kind of leadership fluff. It's a lot of, you know, people who really don't like to work, but they want to sell you a book, and that's their job. So you got to be careful about who's a marketer selling you a book, and that's their livelihood, and who's really a leader,
Right.
and who really studies leadership. The most researched book that I've been able to find on leadership is probably over the years, and this book's been around a while. It's had several different editions. I think they're on the 7th or 8th. I'm not sure right now. I think the last one I've got is like the 6th edition, but it's The Leadership Challenge by Kozis and Posner.
Mm-hmm.
I can't recommend that book enough. The 5 exemplary practices of leadership. Um, it's true in every situation. I've never seen it disproved.
Mm-hmm.
I just never have. I've never seen a great leadership situation where those 5 things weren't present. And so I'd encourage you to go on leadershipchallenge.com and look that up. There's actually one called the Student Leadership Challenge as well, and it's geared toward college students. I used to take my students through, when it first came out, I took my students through that at Northeast State, the student leadership teams. And it was really beneficial. You know, those are probably 3 of my favorite books as far as that goes. And you know, for me personally, and this is not a religious plug or anything, but I learn a lot of leadership principles from the Bible. You know, there's some Old Testament Nehemiah and different stories and some of the ancient writings of the Old Testament that they're pretty relevant if you read them and think about situations today. They're pretty relevant, much more than maybe some would imagine. So that's more of a personal book, but for me, but those books there are 3 of my top, you know, ones I'm reading right now and kind of have read for a while and, you know, use in trainings and different things. Anything by Patrick Lencioni is great, or Lencioni. I don't know how he pronounces it, but he's got a book called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And he's got one called The 3 Signs of a Miserable Job, but I think they made him change the title. I personally like that title. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, just, you know, whatever you can do. But those are probably 3 of some of my favorite books that that I've read lately and are, you know, have been used to kind of help me with making that. But anything ATD comes out with, they've got tons and tons of great books on there as well. And if you become a member, you get a discount on all their products. I think the membership's somewhere around a couple $300 a year or something like that. You get their magazine, you get access to their website, members only content, things like that. If you're going into that field, it's worth it. If you're not, it's probably not. You know, if you're going into another field of business, let your training person do that.
Yeah. Well, those are great resources. Thank you. So if one of our students was interested in a career in training and development, what should they be doing right now to prepare?
Well, I think what they're doing right now is a good thing, because I don't know of any training job out there that doesn't. There may be a few that doesn't require an education, at least a bachelor's degree, to get in any decent paying jobs. I'll say that. Other than maybe your own consultancy. I mean, you don't necessarily need that, but even then, I think it's probably wise. It gives you some validity and credence, but it also gives you some learning, some essential learning, basics and foundational learning that you need. So where you're at right now is probably the starting point. But I think I just found that. Sorry, I'm being distracted. I just found that link. I'm going to put it in this is for Microsoft Teams, in case you all are wanting some learning on that yourself. I just put that in the chat box, the little link there to Microsoft Teams video training. I'm sorry, I mentioned that earlier, and it's been on my mind ever since, so I had to get it in there. But as far as your career, honestly, getting some kind of certification through ATD or training industry. There's certified learning professionals. I think there's also, they just came out with a new one. It's like an associate. It's a step. It's a step toward that. And you can get one and then it applies to the other. And there's some different tiered training. There's also master trainers certifications that you can get on ATD. So I would highly recommend some of their training. It's really good stuff from what I've seen. A few of those I've taken. I've not done the big thing yet, just not had the time actually to put into it. I'm getting on the job training. And honestly, on the job training, there's nothing that's ever going to take the place of that. But you have to get the minimal training to get you that opportunity to get that job.
Yeah.
And that's the key. You may not feel like you want to start out in an entry-level position in HR or in training and development. And I'm finding out, even for myself, learning more of the HR functions that I didn't really know about and don't really care to know in depth about. To understand a 30,000 foot view of that has really helped me in being able to help other people understand the process. So just knowing enough about the whole processes of HR to understand the process helps you. And even if you want to go into a selected field of training. So I would recommend that. There are incredible master's level programs as well. That's never a bad option. It's never a bad option to get more formal education, because that's just going to open more doors for you. There are certain positions that won't accept just a bachelor's degree. So if you ever want one of those positions, and some of you may not, and that's okay, but if you want one of those positions, then what you need to do is, unfortunately, just go talk to Dr. Haas and get in that master's program. Or wherever, but personally, it's a pretty good program. So,
Nice.
yeah. That's in case he watches the thing, then I'll be out of trouble. Yeah. If he makes it this far, I'll be out of trouble.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's continually learning and growing yourself is going to always put you ahead in being a learning professional. You can't ever stop growing. You never get there. The moment that you think, okay, I've mastered this, I've got it, I'm done, you really are done. So if you know everything, there's no growth left.
Right.
And if you stop growing, you die. And so I just, continually be a lifelong learner, no matter what role or what field you choose to go into. Whatever it is, pick the field and keep learning. And the funny thing is, you could pick a field and start learning in that field, and then it open up more opportunity for some other field. I didn't start out thinking I want to be a learning and development manager. I started out thinking I want to help people, and that's never changed. But I've had several different roles that have been able to help people. So try to get your, what's your one big thing? What's your why? Why do you want to exist and live? Why do you want to do that? For some people, their answer is, I want to make money. I want to make the most money I can. Well, that's great, but you're going to be miserable at some point, and money can't buy happiness. And so people like to try, but you can talk to people who are wealthy. It doesn't work. I've talked to several people who are wealthy who are miserable, and I would rather be happy and making it than I don't want to be poor. Let's be honest. I mean, I don't want to be begging on the streets, but I don't want to be miserable and rich either. There's more to life than that. And I think if you can get in a place where you feel like you're making an impact, you can do that by always trying to be somebody who learns. Find your values and define them, write them down. I have a mission statement, and my little personal mission statement that I have is, I help anyone who God brings into my path to discover their destiny and help them develop that. That's my personal mission statement. And so I've used that in every job I've ever had, from, my first serious job to in youth ministry, all the way up to, what I'm doing now. And just, that's never changed. And You know, it may look different than you think it's going to look now, but don't be afraid of that. You know, keep growing, keep stepping forward, keep taking the opportunities that are presented to you that seemed like the right thing. I've turned jobs down that were lots more money, that were different opportunities, but they weren't going to afford me the ability to be able to really impact and help people. They were going to put me checking a box somewhere. And that, for me, that's not the right thing. Now, for somebody else listening to this, it may be the right thing. You may be that box checker and you love it, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. But nobody can define it for you. I don't think there's only one way to success. I think success is individual, and you can find it, you know, in a multiple different ways and paths. But it never hurts to start with educating yourself on what subject matter you want. If there's a subject you're interested in, learn everything you can about it, even if it's just as simple as sitting down on Google and not stopping until you find every article on it and read it, every book printed about it and read it. I've read so many leadership books that it's scary. And like I said, the reason I can say most of them are fluff and useless is because I've been the sucker that bought them all and read them all. And so, you know, if it's not practically going to help you in these, at my age now, when I read books, if they aren't helping me practically, I never make it past the first chapter, and I put them down and, or, you know, delete them off my account and go on. So, you know, there's some other little great books. Anything by Ken Blanchard, Mark Miller, those are good writers, good authors as well. But just continue to pour into yourself. That's the key. If you can continue to pour into yourself, it'll eventually come back out in a good thing for you. So
excellent, very well said, Keith. So if you were in the seat of my students right now, normally when I do this, you'd be in the classroom, and I'd say, if you are sitting in this classroom right now, what's one thing that you know now that you wish you had known way back then?
I wish I had known how to take advantage of opportunities when they come by. I think I probably passed up about, well, I won't even number them, but several opportunities. And part of it was because I did not believe that I could do it. There was if I could give you one thing, it's be confident. Don't be cocky, but be confident. There's something about confidence in people and understanding that, you know, you don't know everything, but you do know some things. And taking advantage of those opportunities that are presented to you. I had the opportunity to go straight through school and have it paid for, and I was an idiot, and I fought tooth and nail. I just wanted to, you know, do my own thing and do it my own way. And I thought freedom meant that I was in control of everything. And what I found out is true freedom is when you can submit to authority that knows more than you, that has more experience than you, and learn from them and not dismiss it. And it's why it's so easy for me now to see some of the old guard of this institution with such grace, because I realize that as much as they may be holding on to old ways of doing things and they don't want to change, there's still a lot of knowledge and a lot of good. Typically, I don't know everybody, but typically in those people, they've been around a while. You know, if you've experienced the same bad year over and over again, well, maybe you can't add a lot to me, but rarely is that the case for people. Most time they have been through a lot and they've learned a lot. And I love getting with some of our old professors, and I mean that respectfully, but some of our older professors that are on their way to retirement, just kind of hanging on, or maybe should have retired years ago, but didn't have anywhere else to go. So here they are, and you get to have them in your classes. But I love talking to them because there's such a rich history there that they can enlighten you on, and you can learn something from them. You may not do it like they would do it, and that's okay. But it doesn't mean you have to be combative against them. And even if they appear combative against you, you're gonna be an old curmudgeon one day too. So try to remember that. But I think for me, it's taking advantage of those opportunities to learn from everybody. Everybody I run into now, I'm thinking, how can I learn from this person, and what can I give them? Those are two questions I wish I'd started asking myself every time I had an encounter with somebody, 20 years earlier.
Yeah.
And taking advantage of the opportunity my dad was offering me to, I'll pay for your school, son, and I said, no, I'll be an idiot. Can I have a car instead? And so he said, sure, it's your mistake. And he was right. I tell everybody my dad went through this stupid phase when I turned about 13, 14. Dad, up until that point, he was Superman. And then he turned into stupid guy from about 13 or 14 to about 25.
Yep.
After I should have been graduating with my master's degree at 25 and could have been, he was, he started becoming real smart again. And I started listening to him a little bit more. And that's when I, like I said, became aware that, just because you don't see eye to eye with somebody doesn't mean they don't have anything to offer you.
Right.
And so trying to pull that out and understand, understanding that everybody's got something, everybody's bringing something to the table. And if you can pull that out of them, it does a couple things. It makes them feel good about themselves. It encourages them to be more who they are, and it gives you some learning, and it enhances your life as well. So I think those are some good things about it.
Excellent points.
Yeah.
Excellent. What, if you had to pick one thing, what are you most proud of in your career that you've accomplished?
Wow. It's hard to say. There's tons of things I'm proud of, and it's not some big prideful thing for me. Most of it has to do with the success of people that I feel like I've had just a little bit of input in. We had some students at Northeast State that transferred directly from Northeast State to Yale and Harvard and Columbia. And, those two young ladies were very special young ladies and just studious, and to see them be successful. I think it's the greatest thing, or the most proud I am, is when anybody that I've had any contact with becomes successful, and I see them accomplish goals. For me, that's the most proud. And I don't know that I can pinpoint just one of those that makes me more proud than others. To see people overcome all the odds. The young lady, Beth, who went to Columbia, graduated Columbia with believe it or not, a 5.0. I think they're on a 5-point scale or something. It was crazy. I was like, I didn't know they had a 5. That's how dumb I am. I didn't even know there was a 5-point scale. And but she graduated from there and got a full ride scholarship to do her master's and Juris Doctorate at the same time at Harvard.
Wow.
And she is finishing that up, I think, this May. If not, it's next May, but she's pretty close. And it's just been amazing to watch her and overcome. She was a non-traditional student with 2 kids, single parent, had major health issues, and just to see her keep going and going and going and overcome that. I don't know if I'm proud of anything other than just being able to be around her while I was watching her do that. And there's tons of students that you see like that. I'm sure you can experience that. But for me, I think the most proud of anything since I've been at ETSU, if I can pinpoint it down that far, is being able to have, secretaries and supervisors come back to you and say, thank you so much for caring enough to pour into us, and not to just say what we wanted to hear, but to tell us the truth. One supervisor, I won't name this supervisor, but they sent an employee to me to be coached because that employee was taking too long of lunch breaks and they weren't keeping their schedule right and all this stuff. And this particular unit is pretty flexible. And I went back to that person, and as I was coaching them, I realized that the boss had never really made it clear to that person that they were not to take a 2-hour lunch. They were thinking it was okay. It was flexible. I can be flexible. Everything's good. And I just went back to that boss and I said, hey, this person's going to do whatever you ask them to do. They just didn't clearly understand that you were asking them to do this. And it got back to the fear of having a crucial conversation and sitting down. Most people in their mind dream up some scenario that's a whole lot worse than what actually happens.
Yeah.
The stress comes from ruminating on and playing that interaction over in your head 20,000 times before you actually have it, or that you never actually have it. And that's what happened in this case. And when I pointed that out, I remember the supervisor just kind of, jaw dropped, and he goes, oh my God. And I think it just hit him for the first time. I really never have said, hey, you need to be taking an hour lunch. And that completely changed their whole relationship. And I see them out now, and it's just like, I've never heard anything, negative since that interaction. And I didn't really do anything. I think most of the times that I'm the most proud of, it's stuff that I had no idea was that big of a deal until later on. And then somebody comes back and tells you, hey, this was a pivotal moment in my career. And I'm like, really? Well, okay. So most of the time it's when I'm so not mindful of myself that I'm just doing my thing and what I'm good at and what I'm gifted at. Yeah. I think that's the best you can be. And that's when you make the most impact on people.
That's awesome. So, that's awesome. Is there any last words of wisdom or things you want people to know?
I tell you, I don't know. I do encourage everybody out there just to don't make the most common mistake that we all make, and don't assume that everyone else sees the world through your lens. It's dangerous, and it happens all the time, and we all struggle with it, and we need to just be honest and open with that. Dr. Keith Johnson is our equity and inclusion person that's over that department and that division, and he's doing a lot of good things. I think that's going to help shift some of the things on culture and at ETSU. And the reason I say that is because you always learn more, or at least I have always learned more from people who see things that I can't see.
Right.
Or see it from, we use in one of my trainings, I have this beach ball and it's 6 colors. And I throw the beach ball in the middle of the room, and I point somebody out on the opposite side of the beach ball, and I ask them, what 3 colors do you see primarily? And they tell me 3 colors. And then I tell them, well, obviously you're blind because I see these 3 colors. And we kind of pretend like we're arguing. And then I say, okay, enough. And I ask somebody on the right side of me, tell me the 3 colors. And of course they see 2 of their colors and 1 of mine, or vice versa. And we have this whole discussion around the beach ball. And eventually we see this little white patch at the top and the bottom of the beach ball. And we have whoever's holding the beach ball to turn it to where we can see all the colors. And really that beach ball can be used as any issue that comes up in any situation in your life or work. Any issue that comes up where there's opposing viewpoints and where emotions may be high and something important's at stake. Yeah. Those are what's defined as a crucial conversation. And so if you have that beach ball, if you're willing to look at the issue from all angles, because nobody's lying, everybody's telling you what they see from their perspective. The problem is their perspective is impossible to see all the colors without changing and talking about the issue. And really examining it in a full manner. And so, and rarely do you walk up on a situation, take one look, and have the ability to see the whole issue. Yeah. There's few people who have that gift, and even they mess up occasionally. Even people who are gifted in that mess up occasionally. So, my last piece of advice is don't assume that everybody sees the world through your lens, and and don't think you can't learn from somebody you may totally disagree with, and you may never agree with them, but you can learn something from them. You can understand their perspective. Stephen Covey, in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and that's another book I'd recommend. Deborah Harley McClaskey, Dr. McClaskey on our staff at ETSU has written a book with Stephen Covey's son, and it's called 7 Habits of Highly Effective College Students. And it just was released this past year. I would highly recommend you get that book and read it. And one of the top things he says is seek first to understand and then be understood.
Right.
And I think if you go into any situation and seek to understand, and then you can seek to be understood, right, from your perspective. Try to get the other people's perspectives first and understand what the situation is from their perspective. And then you can more effectively form your own, perspective and add to the conversation. So that's all I'd add is just, I wish Congress would be better at that. I wish, bureaucracies and governments would be better at that. But, we'll keep trucking along until they are. So,
yeah, we don't have much choice, do we?
Yeah. We can be frustrated a lot, but other than that,
yeah. Well, Keith, I can't thank you enough for your time, for sharing your time with us and our students. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, the best way to get a hold of me, I will type in my email address into the field there, and my number, and the office number right now is, if you leave a message, I will get it and I'll get back with you. Let's see. Okay, there's my office number and my email on the chat. It's gloverke@etsu.edu, and 423-439-6133 is my office. More than welcome to reach out with any questions or anything you have about anything we talked about or whatever, if you want. If there's anything I can help you with, I'll be more than willing to do that. Met some of you already, some of the team leaders. I was very impressed with the team leaders and got to meet with some of them while they were on spring break in Florida, trying to run from the coronavirus. And I don't know that they found it at the beach. Hopefully they didn't. But there was a lot of people that we were able to connect with that week and the week before in a meeting, and kind of talk about some of the project and everything that we were going to do. And I don't know that that's going to happen exactly like we thought, but
right.
But if there's anything I can do to help out, help point somebody in a direction or give them information, I'll be more than happy to do that if I can.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate your time, Keith, and carry on the good work and let us know how we can help you in the future.
Yeah, no problem at all. I appreciate you guys. Thanks a lot, and have a great rest of the semester at home.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Take care.
Okay, have a good one.